Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all have been doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I am a witchy content creator here on YouTube and some other platforms as well. So if you like the vibe, feel free to check out the links down below in the description and connect with me elsewhere. And if you are a returning subscriber, it's good to see you back. Thanks for coming back, and thank you so much for all of your likes, shares, subscribes, support, whatever. It really does mean a lot to me, and it does help me build this channel. So thank you so much, and let's get into today's video. So today's video is going to be kind of like a witchy book review. And the book that I'm going to be reviewing is the new Aradia, a modern witch's handbook to magical resistance, edited by the lovely and amazing Laura Tempest Zaycroft, which if you don't know Zaycroft, you better get to know Zaycroft, okay? Amazing books, amazing work out there published. Like Weaving the Liminal, chef's kiss, chef's kiss. So for those of you who already know, this will just be a review, but for those of you who might not know, I am currently a student in the Red Thread Academy, which is like an online traditional witchcraft academy. I'm in my second year, and in the second year, we have to pick a specialty, which I picked votary. And to take that a step further, I'm kind of diving into these Aradian mysteries as a Aradian priestess, as a disciple of the mother, if you will. So kind of on my reading list is this book, along with a few other books. And I got this book a while ago, and I kind of just skimmed through it, to be honest. But since I'm in the Red Thread Academy doing this votary work, I figured this would be really good to pick back up again and take another look at it. Because sometimes with witchy books, like, it can be easy just to kind of like skim through things. But unless I really sit down with the book and read it, I don't always retain information. Because we're a little neurospicy. We're a little neurospicy. So this book is relatively short. I think it's just a little over 100 pages or so. It's not like a really long book, which I feel like makes it pretty accessible. Also, I want to say that I paid like maybe 20 bucks, if that, for this book. Price-wise, I would say it's fairly accessible as well. I know that you can get this on Amazon for sure. I think the thing that I enjoyed the most about this book is that it was kind of a collaborative work between, about a dozen or so witchy creators, authors who kind of sent submissions to make this book happen. So I think it's cool to kind of get the perspective from different practitioners, such as Matt Aron from Psychic Witch, or the Christopher Pinzak, and of course, like Laura Tempest themselves. Really enjoyed reading the different witches' perspectives about Aradia and about the modern aspect of Aradia and what it means to be a witch in this modern world today, and to draw inspiration from the Vangelo, the Gospel of Witches, and to use that in our practice. It absolutely takes, I feel like, the essence of witchcraft and really puts it into action. This book really touches on magic and witchcraft inherently being political, which I completely agree with. And I actually feel like when there are discussions going on and people kind of want to avert the politics that are inherent in our world in witchy spaces, right? Oh,
I don't want to get invested in politics. I don't want to get involved.
Not being involved is inherently a point of privilege. And witchcraft has very much so been a tool of the marginalized and of the oppressed. And I think that the Gospel of Witches and the story of Aradia essentially teaching the peasant folk the art of witchcraft to liberate themselves from their oppressive lords, I think demonstrates that very well. And so there are some current events that are touched on in this book, such as Black Lives Matter, and when George Floyd, Drayshawn Reed were murdered and how we as witches can come together to uplift the marginalized and support those causes. And that's just one example. I do think that it's very important for us as witches to be socially conscious and to stand for those who can't stand for themselves and to be a voice for the voiceless. Sometimes witchcraft and magic is how justice or vengeance is served. I really enjoyed Matt Aron's submission in here, where Matt kind of talks about the spirit of witchcraft and how witchcraft has a rebellious spirit, an adversarial spirit. I really resonated with that a lot. And I also feel like that kind of rings truth for me when it comes to Aradia as well, because to me, so much of that is about religious subversion and blasphemy and sort of taking the power back out of the mainstream religious powers that be. I also really enjoyed just kind of the whole overall narrative about rewilding the witch, not declawing ourselves as witches, not whitewashing magic, not sugarcoating things in the craft, or not making everything love and light. Like, witchcraft is ugly and dirty and gritty sometimes. Witches have wrinkles and talons and teeth, maybe even hooves. I've said this before on my channel, but I do think that in the early witchcraft sort of revival movement, I think a lot of the softening of witchcraft was actually done by other witches in order to make the craft more palatable in like the modern mainstream, which I have mixed feelings about, if I'm being honest. Like, in some ways, I think that pushed the movement further because it did make witches and witchcraft more palatable. But what have we lost? What have we sacrificed in order to be more easy to digest? In some ways, we've kind of lost that wild, feral archetype of witch, which I think is such a powerful archetype. Also a hashtag, I think it's hashtag We Are Aradia, but I highly recommend that you fall down that rabbit hole and go check that out. I liked Christopher Penzak's submission. One of the things that really stuck with me is Christopher was talking about how there are witches that are red and blood and bone. The gritty witches. The witches that are not afraid to get their hands dirty, to get, just really in the work. Maybe more so from an aggressive or defensive or war mage kind of esque aspect. Witches that are red and bone and blood. Witches that are weaving malefica. And then there are witches that are green and leaf and branch, I think is how Christopher put it. And those are our healers and our midwives, and those are the ones coming in after the witches that are red and blood and bone, and then facilitating healing. And to be honest, I hadn't really thought of that a whole lot until I had read Christopher's submission in here. And I think it was probably honestly one of my favorites, because of course we need to touch on the aspect of rewilding the witch and not being afraid to use magic, be it by bless or bane, in our craft to better our own life, but also the lives of others and to help uplift the marginalized. And in order to bring down power structures, you don't do so by asking nicely. You need the witches that are red and blood and bone to destroy systematic oppression. Absolutely. That totally makes sense. But I like how Christopher was like, okay, so what happens after? What happens after we tear the towers down? What happens after we start the wildfire and burn everything to the ground to create a new foundation? Then what? Then the witches who are green, of leaf and branch, come in and start healing those wounds and start tending to the people. And I really do think that the witches, red and green, both, are so necessary to the resistance movement and to social justice and to healing the people, because it does require kind of both sides of that, does it not? So I really found that submission especially delicious. Really also enjoyed Laura's sigils in here. They're gorgeous. Like, take a look at this sigil here, using kind of like some pictogram-esque aspects. This one is for personal empowerment. I really liked this one. I love the horned moons that are featured here. I would say that this book is very accessible when it comes to price. It's pretty affordable. It's short, so if you struggle sometimes with like reading and keeping your attention, this book is really, it's not that long. And I don't say that as a diss against the book because I think it's long enough for what it's supposed to be. Think of this as reading letters from different witches sharing with you their vantage point and perspective of how they incorporate the Aradian mysteries into modern practice. And a lot of it does have to do, like I've said before, with justice and being socially conscious and sticking up for the marginalized. So I think if any of that is something that you are interested in using your craft for and honing your skills for, I absolutely think that this would be a book that I would recommend. Also, if you are a fan of the Vangelo or the Gospel of Witches or feel a pull or a draw to Aradia, I definitely think that you would enjoy this book as well. I really do feel like this book captures not only just the spirit of witchcraft, but really also Aradia and her message. Overall, I would honestly probably give this book a 10 out of 10. It definitely met my expectations and more. And I feel like for the price and for how long it is, you really can't be too mad at it. Like I said, it's kind of like reading letters from prominent witches and kind of their stance on how they feel about Aradia and these mysteries. I'm going to read you the charge of the new Aradia because I just think it's beautiful. When sense and world have parted ways, whenever need is great and dire, in brightest sun or moon's dark phase, bring forth will to light the fire. Send down the roots, raise up your arms, and call forth spirit, summon its charms. With wand and cauldron, stang and knife, with cloak and horn and lore of wife, build your wisdom, bide your time, and eyes of heart and blood sweet wine. In city and wood gather still to protect and guide with our will. Now is the time to heed the call, witches together, one and all. In our truth we know the power that our voice brings down the tower. To banish, cleanse, bless, and heal and guide, with our secrets and Sabbath ride. It's the hour to change the tides, for now, as witches, we all rise. And that's by Laura Tempest, and it says January 25th, 2017. Hashtag We Are Aradia. Please go check this book out. I cannot recommend this more. I'm also reading another Aradian book. It is Craig Spencer's, and I've also had that book for a little while, but I'm again revisiting it after having a conversation with one of my lovely friends. And so I'm kind of touching back on that and diving back into that as well. Anyways, I hope that you all are well, and until next time, blessed be, and I will see you in hell.